Shalom, everyone. This Dvar Torah is on Parashat Beshalach, and we'll focus on the question of who were the men who we sometimes know as Meraglim, Tarim, the men that Moshe sent, or that the people sent to explore the land of Israel. I believe the answer to that question, at least one answer to that question, could be found in somewhat enigmatic pasuk at the beginning of the parsha. Ela shemot hanashim asher shalach Moshe laTur ta'aretz, vayikra Moshe lo'Hoshea binun Yehoshua. Okay, Moshe's decision to change Yehoshua's name. Okay, so many of us are probably familiar with Rashi based on the Gemara that he added the Yud to Yehoshua's name, that Ka Yoshiacha me'atzad meraglim. But I want to focus on a different interpretation, that of the Chizkuni and the Tur. That the reason why Yehoshua's name needed to be changed was because they were going to encounter Amalek in their travels in the land of Israel, and Moshe wanted to make sure that Amalek wouldn't recognize who Yehoshua was from the battle that had taken place at the end of Parashat Beshalach. Which there are a whole host of questions one could ask about this particular approach that needs to be ironed out. But for the purposes of our discussion here, the comments of the Chizkuni and the Tur point us backwards in time to the story of Amalek's attack on Bnei Israel at the end of Parashat Beshalach, and perhaps is a key to understanding what's going on here. And what seems to me not necessarily self-evident, but I believe there's a lot of evidence for this, is that the men who Moshe chose to go into the land of Israel to scout out the land were people who were battle-tested. If you follow Ramban, who says that the mission into the land was a military mission, it was a military reconnaissance mission to test the fortifications and to see what the best pathways would be to use in their battles, then you need men with military experience. And the only battle that Bnei Israel had fought up until this point was the battle against Amalek. And so I would like to suggest, and there's support in the Midrashim for this, that the men that were chosen were, together with Yehoshua, Yehoshua was the general against Amalek, were Yehoshua's generals, captains, elite soldiers. And this squad of soldiers was sent into the land of Israel in order to chart a course for Bnei Israel and to determine what was militarily the best thing for them to do. Okay? And what happened, though, it would seem, right? They come back and we don't see there's no image of battle-tested soldiers confidently giving a report. We see that they're terrified and they're very scared. And what I'd like to suggest, and though this is not explicit in the text, is that they actually had a second encounter with Amalek that they were not anticipating. And what happened, and there's evidence for this based on a Bechor Shor in Parashat Chukat, that they actually had a military skirmish with Amalek while they were in Eretz Yisrael, while they were scouting on Eretz Canaan, and that broke them. They were not at the head of an army. They did not have the resources of the entire Bnei Israel at their back. They were just a small squad, albeit a well-trained squad, but a small squad. And they came back, and their faith in their own military prowess, in their own abilities, was shaken, was cracked. And their mistake, and the mistake of the nation, was placing too much stock in their own military acumen, in their own military prowess, and not remembering and not remembering where it is that their military strength derived from, and the fact that their ability to conquer the land was not dependent upon their military prowess. They would have to utilize it for sure, but that ultimately it would be Hashem's guiding hand that would allow them into the land. There are a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of open thoughts. If anyone wants to reach out to hear more, you should feel free to do so. But have a Shabbat Shalom to those reading Parashat Shelach this week, and a Shabbat Shalom as well to those reading Parashat Beshalach for this week.